Since the release of Total War 3 Kingdoms, two of the biggest things that have been requested on the channel across all the many tutorial videos we have done together are how do I combat public order and how do I combat corruption. So in this video today, we're going to cover both of those subjects. We're going to do a pretty in-depth dive on corruption, especially over public order. Although public order, I feel, has a lot more nuances than corruption. Corruption, to me, is a little bit more straightforward, and you don't have to toe a line as much as you do for public order. So we're going to go through corruption first, because I think that's probably the more requested subject to talk about before we then dive in on public order. One thing I do want to announce, so before we jump into corruption, this is probably going to be a 15-20 minute segment on corruption. And if you don't want to go through every single bit on things, you can take a look in the upper right hand corner. You're going to see a card pop up for H for Havoc. He did a video on corruption, and it's 6 minutes long. It's down and dirty, and it covers pretty much everything we're going to go over. I'm just probably going to take a deeper dive. A lot of what I got for corruption, I got directly from Creative Assembly, because there's some mechanics that I couldn't really figure out how they worked. So for the most part, what I've learned from corruption is from Creative Assembly. And if there are some things that you notice, please let me know in the comments below. But let's dive on into the world of corruption. The big question is, how does corruption start? How does it get created? What are the factors behind it? Well, it's kind of a mid to late game mechanic. You'll experience it very sparingly in the early game. I believe this Matung campaign is turn 82, and we have what is it, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 cities. Well, anywhere from 9 10 11 or 12, you're going to start noticing corruption in your income. So let's take a look over here. If I hover over the income thing, I can see that I have a 2% corruption across my faction right now, meaning that, as you can take a look, here it is, minus 2% of my income is being lost to corruption. This is money being represented, being pushed away into someone else's pocket and not going directly towards your treasury. And as your cities and your commanderies and your counties increase, so does that corruption level. And again, you're not going to experience that till you're around that mid-game portion. And as you expand your territories, as you undoubtedly will, as you go through your conquest of China, your corruption is going to skyrocket. So we're going to go through a number of ways you can combat corruption. And I'm hopefully going to do this in a somewhat succinct manner. We'll go look at our court first. And obviously, there's positions that you can appoint people to, right? And these positions will grant you advantages when it comes to stuff like corruption or your peasantry, your recruitment costs, stuff like that. Now, out the gate, these things, none of these positions really do much for your direct hit on corruption. But your administrator positions, if you hover over this, you can see position effects. The very bottom of that list is minus 30% to corruption for the administered commandery that Da Qiao is a part of. So that's one early way, and probably one of the strongest ways to combat corruption is appointing an administrator to a commandery that you feel is producing the most amount of income for you. If it's a small commandery that's not producing a lot and it's getting hit with, like, I don't know, like a 10% corruption, that's not going to be as huge for you as your 5,000 income production. You want, income production commander. You want that high administrator there, reducing that corruption. And the administrator brings a lot of things to the table too, outside of just corruption, so it's a very strong advantage. Now, the higher court over here, the Chancellor, Grand Commandant, Excellency, Director, and Tutors, also have an advantage here. They have quest rewards from the Faction Council. And as this kind of progresses, depending on what character their color is, or what color their character is, they'll give you specific rewards. So for instance, any character that's yellow in these positions up here will actually increase your income from peasantry, and they'll reduce corruption by 5%. So invoking the council to get some quests will help you in your pursuit of reducing corruption. And that's just the court for now. There's diplomacy, of course, but reforms are another way you can really hit into corruption. And it's a great passive way to do it that doesn't require a lot of investment, right? The one-off that we'll talk about here is coin minting. Now, coin minting does require a little trudge up this branch here, And I think this branch is very worth it for the majority of factions you're going to play. 15% income from peasantry, 10% income from all sources, and then 15% income from industry. So that's gonna be heavily advantageous to you. But coin minting gets you a -8% to corruption here. That's gonna be your big one there. Now this branch right here is also gonna help you out with your corruption. First off, with the 5 punishments, that's a -5 to corruption. And then very last with officer relocation with 6% reduction to corruption. Now between these 3 reforms alone, you're looking at what, 19% total reduction to corruption. Keep in mind that your reforms take every 5 turns to activate. So if I were you, I would look at by turn, let's just say turn 80, when you're going to start really, in my mind personally, you're going to start accruing corruption. You might accrue corruption earlier if you're expanding quickly. So a character like Sun Jian might actually get corruption quite quick because he's expanding so fast through a lot of Han territory. Keep that in mind. But without that kind of factor being there, without being Sun Jian being looked at, I would look at getting either this branch completed or to coin minting by, I'd say, turn 50 or 60. That means you have to start in on this pretty quickly. I mean, if you're looking at turn 50, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 reforms you have to get into. 5 turns apiece. It's 20 turns to get all 4 of these activated. So take a look at that. Turn 30, you should be jumping into coin minting. The same thing here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn 30, you should be jumping towards officer relocation. So keep that in mind when you're building your reforms, that you do have a good buffer period where you can invest in stuff for your army, that you're really building up a strong army with good military supplies, with good recruitment cost reduction and such to how you want to build. But really look towards making into these, especially towards the latter portion of the double digits for your turn count. Now, in addition to that, there are a number of other ways you can really combat corruption. Now, taking a look at our building browser, I'm going to try to make this as succinct as possible as well, because we'll go into buildings, then we'll go into assignments, and that should really kind of square up here. Now, this line, the administration office, is tedious because it more often than not is replaced depending on who you are. Gongsun Zan has a whole entire different line here. I think the same thing with Yuan Shuao and Yuan Shi. So I would take a look at which character you're playing to see if the administration office has been replaced by a unique line. If it has, don't worry, they will have something that is going to be reminiscent to what we're about to talk about. And that is the Office for Archives and Seals. This will give you a -20% to corruption. In one of my earlier videos, I was saying I wasn't sure if this is just simply the adjacent commandery and the current commandery. It is. So if I were to build this, for example, let's go back here. If I were to build this here in Baji, how to pronounce that, then Baji as well as Hangzhong would also benefit from, or any other adjacent commandery such as Wudu up here, would benefit from the reduction to corruption that you get, and that's a cool little rhyme, from the Office for Archives and Seals. Now, this is kind of tedious though, because you have to have Jade to get it. And remember, Jade only spawns at 3 points on this map. There's one of them. Another one of them's like right over here. And then another one I think is like right around there or over here. It's like there, and here. One of these 3 locations. But basically Jade is like condensed in this area. I might be wrong on that. The third one might be further south. But still, my point remains though, that if you're not one of these very centrally located factions, getting to that Jade is going to be quite difficult, because that Jade, like I said, is only one of 3 in the entire map. Now there is another alternative you can go through, and that is the State Workshops. The State Workshop, the far right line, the Grand Treasury Mint, has a -15% to corruption reduction. Now, comparing that, of course, to this one, which is a -20, so you do lose out on the 5%. You do get a lot of great things from the Office for Archives and Seals, such as an income from all sources benefit, as well as prestige. But the State Workshops, you're also going to get income from industry, and if you place this in an industry-heavy commandery, it's going to work out pretty well for you. Now, the reduction to corruption here, though, only requires that you get copper, which is in abundance. I think I've already got some on this character right now. We'll take a look right now by right-clicking. Yeah, I've already got copper solidified, so I can build towards the state workshops without really having to worry. So keep that in mind. If you're not next to a jade mine, the state workshops are a really good alternative to helping to reduce corruption significantly. Now, in addition to buildings, you have access to assignments. Now, I unfortunately cannot show you this specific assignment, reward the filial and incorrupt, but it's going to play into the character abilities that we're going to talk about, so might as well bring this up in a character panel. So taking a look at Fugan, he has, where's wisdom? Wisdom as an ability here, as a skill. Now this is going to be present on all of your blue and on your green characters. Peng De, it's Da, right? Yeah. You guys will let me know. There's wisdom. That gives you reward the filial and incorrupt. Now that is a really, really, really strong ability here, because it's going to give you the ability to get a massive reduction to the amount of corruption you're dealing with. It's a plus 10 satisfaction faction-wide as well. So using this assignment will give you a minus 50% to corruption and plus 10 to satisfaction faction-wide. Remember, that is only activatable though on your blue and your green characters as a skill called wisdom. Looks like the yin and yang symbol. Should be pretty easy to spot. I think I've got it on, yeah, I've got it on Li Chao here. So if he wasn't a general, I'd be able to show you this assignment, but unfortunately he is a general and I cannot show you that assignment. Now the other ability is activatable on both your purple and your yellow characters, your sentinels and your commanders. And that is, there it is, stability, counteract corruption. This unfortunately doesn't have the benefits of reward and reward the filial and uncorrupt. Instead, it just gives you a flat 50% reduction to corruption. So building this out on Yanjing here or on Da Chao is a great way for me to reduce my corruption, because I believe Da Chao is either she's an administrator right now. I have a character that's just like, I think it's Yanjing is my character. It's like, oh, okay, I'm just going to put you on assignment nonstop. I kind of recommend having that for one character. They will eventually want a higher position, but it's a really great way to get access to some good, strong assignments by just pretty much grooming a character for it. In addition to that, you have to watch out because there are some traits, and I unfortunately don't have any across any of my playthroughs to show you, that can either increase or decrease your corruption. So look for those characters and see if they have any of those passive traits. Honest, there you go, minus 5% corruption, but only if the character is Prime Minister, Heir, or Faction Leader. You don't really have to worry if it's just a normal administrator or anything like that, but make sure before you appoint someone to a faction leader, heir, or prime minister that they don't have, I think dishonest is the trait for the reduction to corruption. I'm sorry, the increase to corruption. Honest is the one you want to reduce corruption. In addition to that, there are a number of followers that you can appoint. I don't think I have any currently in this playthrough. That will help you out with your corruption, as well as accessories like this one, for example. Discourses of the States will help reduce corruption by 5%. So there are a lot of really great ways that you can combat corruption. And I think that corruption is one of those things that really sneaks up on people as their commanderies grow, because the game doesn't really kind of spell out how or what controls corruption. And if you do know now that it's you increasing your territories is what causes it, you can stem your growth a little bit, or at least prepare to insulate your growth with a lot of corruption penalties, or I guess negativities towards it, or reduction, penalty reduction, corruption reduction to help pad that increase to your growth. Right now we only have 2 corruption, but we still are losing 2% of our income to just the willy-nilly of the game. So as you increase your commanderies, your territory holdings and whatnot, you're going to want to plan for that corruption. If it's either going to be through your reforms, it's either going to be through your character skills, the assignments, the actual administrators themselves, which reduce 30% to corruption. Just kind of plan that out ahead of time. If you are playing Gongsun Zan doesn't have the conventional character court here. He has these other 4 that are right here that kind of act as administrators, and one of them actually increases corruption by 10%. So what you would normally get as a 30% reduction to corruption, you only get 20%. So be mindful of that as well. Make sure you really pay a lot of attention to the tooltips That's what's going to save you a lot of time on a lot of oops, I just fucked up scenarios, is by looking at those. Just to recap though, your court, your characters, also invoking the council with a yellow character is going to help you out. Your reforms across these coin minting, 5 punishments, and officer relocation. Officer relocation, 5 punishments, coin minting, and the last 2 things just to go over these real quick. Your wisdom ability here, which gives you reward, the filial and corrupt, as well as your stability, which gives you counteract corruption, are going to be the best ways that you can combat corruption. But let's go back now and let's go on to the other side of that coin into public order. But to understand public order, you really have to understand population and population control. I'm not talking about genocide here. So when you hover over your public order, you can see that there is a -2 to population in this city. Bringing up the building browser here, we can take a look at the different levels of the settlement administration. 5 is really the last bastion between manageable public order penalties from the population and like a hard -6 dip, I think, with large cities where it begins. And really there's no difference here between the large city and the normal city, aside from an increase to your commerce income, your peasantry income, population cap, food production is reduced because it's distributed, and you get a slight increase to your prestige. So you don't get any more building slots is what I'm really getting at. So what I'm trying to say is the best way to manage your public order is actually managing your population and the amount of cities that you have. In every other Total War game, what's been the status quo? Produce the highest city as fast as you can. In Total War 3 Kingdoms, that is not necessarily the case. In fact, I would argue against really going past a small city, if not a city. -2 to public order, that's not that hard to deal with. But as you move up to these rungs, you're going to deal with more and more population issues as a result of the public order, or the overpopulation in those larger cities. Imperial cities, for example, I think it's like a -20. I don't remember off the top of my head, to be totally honest with you. But, sorry guys, my allergies are still killing me. Be mindful of those things. So, when I take a look at my map here, I see for the most part I have got 1 city. This is a small city. This is a large town being produced into a small city. And if I'm being totally honest, most of these won't progress past that stage. I am going to want an Imperial City just by the virtue of this being my capital, probably. But you really want to focus on what is going to be in that Imperial City. Okay, this is giving me a 150% increase from commerce. And I'm getting a massive amount of income from peasantry with an Imperial City. Well, then you should really be stacking things that coincide with that Imperial City benefit. If this is not a major commerce faction, then I wouldn't really focus too much on getting to the Imperial City. I'm sorry, a major commerce commandery. Then I wouldn't focus too much on building to the Imperial City for every single one of your commanderies. Really, you have to toe that line between what is absolutely necessary for my growth and what is going to really benefit for me. And if you take a look at things, if I'm looking at just a 4-slot city, like we've got right here, I can manage this public order very well because of the grain silo. The grain silo line of buildings is really, really strong if I'm trying to stack reserve capacity, which helps me out for my replenishment and such. And I'm also probably going to do it if I'm stacking a lot of green buildings here in general. But grain storage at the top end gives me a +2 to public order. That'll come in a lot of handy here if I'm built up to a small regional city. So make sure you're building these cities that coincide with the level of growth you have in mind. If you're just making a commandery that's built solely off of the production of what's around it, say it's settlements and what's around those settlements as well, you don't need more than 3 building slots. And even then, unfortunately, I'm playing Ma Teng, and Ma Teng has replaced the garrison line for your red line. But if you were playing another character, this building would be fortified garrison. I think it's the leftmost arc. But fortified garrison gives you 12 public order. In my case, in the Jialiang supply lines, it gives me 10 public order. So if you're playing a different faction, you'll have the garrison line here. And rather than building your Confucian temples, which are a really strong, really great public order benefit, right? I think that building the garrison is a little bit better. Unfortunately, you can't see it here, but the garrison actually provides you with a number of troops that remain garrisoned in that commandery in the event that it gets attacked. You just have a way better defensive city or capital for your commandery in my mind. And I honestly think that the garrison is a go-to unless I'm going very, very tall with a specific commandery. If I'm going tall, then I'm going to want the Confucian Temple line because that's a nice 16 huge hit to my public order benefit right there. I think that's probably going to be your biggest benefit in those cities that you want to get all the way up to an imperial city, that you want to have that high population so you can really benefit from it. But another reason you want to dip into Confucian temples is mainly for this level right here. And this is going to segue pretty well into our reforms that help you out with your public order. So we talked about corruption, and we talked about this line in specific for corruption. Well, this line in specific also helps you out for public order. And in order to get this, you have to get level 1. Oh, the rural tax collector. I'm sorry. It unlocks the county administrator. I thought that this, in order to unlock this reform, you needed the Confucian buildings. And I believe that's, yeah, Master of Ceremonies is that one. So I apologize for that. So in order to unlock this entire line for both your corruption and your public order, you need the rural tax collector, which, of course, it does cost you public order to make. You do get income from peasantries, but it's balancing that thin line between stacking peasantry income from a large, tall city or getting the public order benefits from, say, your garrisons or from the Confucian line. But as you progress through this, the Bureau of Banditry is a +2 to your public order. Then I look at the Commissioners of Passage is a +3 to public order. That's 5 right there in total. Then I look over at the Master of Ceremonies, which requires the level 2 Confucian Temple, which gives me +3 to public order. So between those three reforms, you're going to get a total of 8 public order. So we've talked about how these reforms you should kind of be planning out from the kind of start of your campaign. So if you're going towards corruption, that makes going into this whole line a lot easier because it's going to double stack for you on things that you're already trying to look for to reduce corruption. So boom, there's your public order, there's your corruption reduction. Now, what are some other ways you can help out with public order? We've gone into some buildings, we've gone into some reforms. Well, you can do assignments. Now, there are no real direct assignments that help out with public order that I can remember off the top of my head. I think there's 1 or 2, and it helps out with maybe 1 or 2 public order. I think it's one of the agricultural exploitation. Now, it does not help out with public order, but it helps out with food production. And because it helps out with food production, you can then play with this tax meter. By playing with this tax meter, okay, it'll help me because it'll help my food production by 4. Well, I'm going to knock this down 1. That's a -4 right there. So if I was using that assignment would grant me an additional 4 food production. I would then be able to knock this tax bar down by 1. In the event, let's say I had something about to revolt, this would help out by giving me an additional 6 public order. That's a kind of a way you can cheese or use assignments to coincide with helping with your public order. If you see you're up against a wall and you have an empty assignment slot, that's a quick way you can pop a quick boost of 6 public order to take advantage of during the length of that assignment. I wouldn't recommend that long term because you do suffer from your tax rate and you suffer from the amount of food being produced from your farming. But again, that is counteracted by the assignment itself. Now, there is another way you can do this, and this plays into as well the same skills we went into for stability here. Oh, stability here is on our yellow and our purple guys, and there it is. Oh, no, that's no ability. Stability is over here. This unlocks counteract corruption, which is your -50% to corruption, but also you get a +5 public order to anyone that, or I'm sorry, any commandery that this character is administrating. So getting that assignment unlocked, which is great. You can use it on another purple character or another yellow character, but also at the same time, this helps out if they're administrating that that commandery. Keep in mind though, let's say I unlock this on Da Chao. I cannot use the assignment if I make her the administrator. So you'd have to unlock stability to be used strictly as an assignment if you want to use the corruption benefits of it. But if you're pursuing the public order, just simply unlock this and then make that character or this character your administrator, and you'll get that +5 to public order. In addition, of course, there are followers. I think I've got some in this playthrough that can help you out with this. Authority of satisfaction, unit morale. Any that isn't that? Aha! There you all are, law enforcer. Now this is of course only going to be present on your prime minister, heir, or faction leader. So you'd want to put the law enforcer on one of those characters to help you out with some desperate public order issues. There's accessories as well that usually exist as well. I have any on this playthrough, unfortunately, guys. I'm sorry about that, but again, using followers, using accessories, these will help out. Sometimes, actually, you can find armor that is beneficial, that is part of a set that'll help out your commandery. And it's typically mainly for the strategists, or the commanders will have armor like that. Then it's very rare that you'll find it on commanders. I'd say it's more so on the administrators. They'll have a commandery benefiting armor, so you can look for that if you so wish. Now, there is one other way you can do this. Of course, you've got your court systems. These will help out with food production, which again will help out with that assignment we were talking about. It will help out with your overall production and income bonuses that will help out on your taller commanderies, so that you can balance out the amount of income that is coming from them and the public order penalties you're suffering. What I mean by that is, if you have a commandery that is an imperial city and it does have a huge public order penalty, you're going to be producing so much money from it that you can really stem the tide of that by doing things like building the Confucian line of buildings or other things to kind of bankroll anti-public order. In addition, of course, putting a general with an army in a commandery of any way, shape, or form, putting it in a settlement or in the actual capital of the commandery will help out with your public order. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But we've talked about the upper court here, right? Chancellors, Grand Commandants, Excellencies, Directors, and Tutors. And we've talked about the Faction Council. Well, if any of those characters are green and you do their little quest, you will get an additional, I think it's like 3 public order as a reward from their quest. So really the main focuses of how you're going to manipulate your public order is striking a balance between which commanderies need to be cities and which commanderies need to go tall into the Imperial City line. Again, I would say that those commanderies that need to be tall and are in the Imperial City line are the ones that you have in mind for big growth, big commerce plans, or big peasantry plans. I say commerce because of the 50%, 150% income from commerce benefit, but you can steamroll peasantry very hard in a commandery that has a lot of peasantry settlements. So I would say those are your 2 big things that would make for an Imperial City. Whereas maybe something that's just got a lot of mixed settlements, keep it a normal city. Keep it a manageable population range so you're not struggling with the overpopulation public order penalty. In addition to that, picture this being the garrison line is going to help you out with your public order. The Jialiang supply lines is huge here. Also the Confucian temples. And then lastly, of course, we just talked about these are your 3 reforms over here. The Bureau of Banditry, Commissioners of Passage, and the Master of Ceremony. So hopefully those tips help you out with your public order issues as you progress through the mid to late portions of your Total War 3 Kingdoms campaign. In short, that really covers everything as far as corruption, what causes it, how to control it, public order, what the big factors are that how public order can get so out of control in your faction. And hopefully this video really gave you a really good idea on how to combat both of those pretty pivotal game mechanics that are very different from the way we've usually played a Total War game. If you have any questions, as always, guys, please feel free to let me know below. I will always be monitoring comments and making sure I get some good answers to you. If you notice any discrepancies or issues, though, please, by all means, let me know in the comments below. I'll have a discourse with you if I think otherwise, but more than likely, you're probably right. There's a really good guide to buildings and economy that I will put in a link in the comments below in the table of contents. So you'll see the table of contents, press more, and you'll see a link that goes through a lot of this stuff in pretty big depth. So be on the lookout for that. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.